Good evening and welcome to All Things Sky Blue. This is a bit of a Sky Blue, All Things Sky Blue special for World Mental Health Day. I'll be shortly joined by one of All Things Sky Blue's very own, Danny White, who's going to discuss sort of his problems that he's had with gambling in the past. And we'll also be joined by Keith, who's Josh's uncle. And he's going to come on and give us his little bit of story as well. Obviously, it is sort of World Mental Health Day. So again, you're not alone. Always our doors at All Things Sky Blue are always open. So please, if you feel like you need to talk to somebody, message us, DM us personally, or just the page if you want to. Please don't feel that you are alone. Talk to somebody. As you can see down the bottom, if you do need immediate help, the Samaritans are always there 24/7. You can call them on 116 123. You can also call 111 and select option 2, or you can always call 999 if you do need immediate help as well. Like you said, you're not alone. There is always somebody that you can talk to, and maybe somebody that's been in the same position as you guys. Obviously, on this World Mental Health Day, I'm going to bring Danny in now. Hiya, Danny. You okay?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Stuart. Hope you are.
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you. Thank you ever so much for coming on and sharing your story in a moment with us. But it's a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? An achievement today, isn't it? Just tell us how long it's been for you.
Yeah, 5 years today was my last bet. So from gambling almost, I think it was 39. I was 39 when I stopped. So I was probably gambling for 25, 26 years of those. So to go 5 years without gambling is, wow. It's a massive achievement for me, really.
Wow. Congratulations on that one, buddy. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we'll bring Keith in. Hiya, Keith.
Hi, Stuart. You all right?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. You?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Good. Obviously, you know Danny, don't you? By obviously where you guys sort of go and seek your help from, don't you?
Yeah. He's a very good member to our group.
Good. That's what we like to hear. He's a good one to ours as well. So I'll get that in as well, Danny. So again, thank you both so very much for coming on, especially on World Mental Health Day as well. It's much appreciated. So if you want to go first, then Danny, if you want to tell us your story, and we'll sit back and have a listen.
Yeah, that's fine. So first of all, when I was young, at a really young age, probably 11 or 12, I used to go on holiday to Cornwall, St. Ives in Cornwall. And me and my brothers used to spend the majority of our times in the arcades, just waiting for money to fall off the machines or trying to sort of knock a machine to try and get some money, or just literally playing on video games where you could just sit and play in there without any money in it, and just generally hanging around arcades during the holiday. We'd obviously do other bits and bobs during the holiday, but a lot of the time we just spent the majority of our time in there because we didn't really see those sort of things back home in Coventry. And then at night time, we'd then go to like a pub and play a few games of pool, and my dad would tend to get change for the fruit machines, and we used to stand there with my dad, and we'll be pressing the buttons and things like that on the fruit machines. So from an early age, every year we used to just basically do that in the arcades. And then as I sort of got older, it then sort of I used to be able to get served quite when I was young, about 14, 15. So I'd go to my local social club, and I would be sort of playing on the fruit machine and just basically using any money I had, because I'd like part-time jobs and glass collecting jobs and things like that. So I'd be just wasting my money on that. I remember a couple of times I'd win the jackpot, and because they thought I looked 18, I could collect it and things like that. So I just kept on doing that really, and sort of losing money and winning money and winning the odd jackpot here and there. And then it got to a stage where the bookies then got these things called online betting terminals, which basically was, you could go on like a machine and feed notes, and there was roulette on there and different games, and it was sort of like a bit of a game changer really in the bookies really, because usually the bookies was just sort of betting on football or horse racing or things like that, where these online things were sort of addictive really. You used to sit there and play on the roulette and just feed the machine money and bits and pieces. So I got sort of addicted to sort of playing on those, and again playing on fruit machines, and just generally betting on anything really. And this was at a sort of an age of about sort of 18, 19, 20. But when you were betting in those days, the bookmakers were only open, most of them, till sort of 5 o'clock at night, and they had set hours, not like the hours you've got now, where they're literally open at sort of 9 in the morning till 10 at night. So what used to happen is you'd go there and lose your money, and you'd get £200 out of the bank, lose the £200 on the machine, and then get 50 quid out, and then that was basically your daily limit. You couldn't get any more money out that day. Again, I did have little wins here and there, and it was just stupid things really. You'd have sort of, I don't know, you'd be something like £397 up on a fruit machine, but you wanted to get 400. But before you knew it, the 397 quid was down to zero, and you lost a lot in literally sort of 5-10 minutes, because you, on these machines, you knew exactly what number was going to come up, because once you played them so much, you knew sort of the way the machine was going or the way the ball was moving, it was going to land on a specific number. So it was mainly betting on those, and lending money off my dad every month. It was, Dad, can you lend me 50 quid? Next, give him the money back. Next month, Dad, can you lend me 50 quid? Can you lend me 100 quid? Literally almost working for free, because I'd be spending my money with, I'd get paid on the 25th of each month, and then within a week, the money's basically gone, and I'm into an overdraft, and I'm skint for the rest of the month. And then it sort of, I remember one day, I discovered online gambling. So I just one night I got home, I think it was on a Monday night, and I registered for William Hill, and I'd never ever gambled online in my life. And I remember I just couldn't believe it. I was sitting on my sofa at home, and I was now gambling literally on anything. So I was the first. I remember it. It was the first week for this new account. I was on a week's holiday, and I gambled, I reckon, almost probably 17, 18 hours a day for 7 days on a William Hill account. And I think at the end of the week, I ended up probably about 30 quid up or 30 quid down. And it was just constant. I was betting on tennis. I wasn't even looking at, I didn't even know the odds. I didn't even know who was playing. I was literally betting on odds, who was the favourite. And then all I'd be doing is during the match, I'd be looking at the odds changing. And then by looking at the odds changing, I knew who was winning the match. I didn't even I rarely had the actual game. I was rarely watching the game. It was just the odds. So I continued to do sort of online. I'd then open one account, and then I'd have, like I said, wins, and majority of the time I'd lose, and then I would self-exclude from one bookies, and then within hours or a couple of days, when I've decided I needed to bet again, I'd then open up another one. So it's just a constant cycle of like open an account, self-exclude, open an account, self-exclude. I must have opened up, I don't know, 50 different 50 online gambling accounts. So I kept on going like that, really, just constantly betting. All of my friends were going out and doing things, and there was me on a Saturday night, worked all week, Monday to Friday, and I was just at home with literally not any money whatsoever. So I couldn't do anything. So then, obviously, it does play with your mental health, and you get depressed, and you're looking at all your friends doing things, and you're just there at home, sitting on the sofa watching telly, doing nothing. So again, I just kept on gambling, and then I moved. My brother met his wife, and I was currently living with him at the time. So then I moved to my own flat locally in Tile Hill. So I was living on my own, managing my finances. I weren't great at managing finances. There were times where I'd ask my mum to look after my money, my brother to look after my money, but at the end of the day, you just lie to get the money. You just tell them you need 50 quid for something, and you just end up gambling it and things like that. So we got to a stage where I was sort of struggling big time, living on my own. I think it was a bank holiday Monday, and I'd spent all my wages at weekends, and all my bills were coming out on the Tuesday, but I'd literally spent all of my wages on over the weekend on gambling. So I was thinking, how do I get this money to pay bills on a Tuesday? So I then discovered payday loans. I'd never used payday loans. Well, in fact, I had used payday loans probably on a couple of occasions, but I thought payday loans were just loans where you went into town and they give you, I don't know, a couple of £100, but you had to physically go and get the payday loan. What I didn't realise, you get payday loans online. So within sort of 5-10 minutes, you could lend £100, £200, whatever you want, but then you've got to pay almost double back over a period of time. So I then sort of got involved in sort of payday loans and using payday loans. I'd never really borrowed to gamble, but then I was getting to a stage where I was borrowing money and using it to gamble, especially with these payday loans. So I was just getting more and more payday loans. I met my current partner at the time. She sort of knew I was gambling, but not to the extent I was gambling at the time. So I just kept on racking up more and more payday loans. It got up to, I think it was about 11 or 12 payday loans. I literally was just, I'd exhausted all avenues of credit. I'd used sort of 40 or 50 bookmakers. Now I was using sort of 40 or 50 payday loan companies. So I couldn't get any more credit. I was struggling. I was lying. I was asking my girlfriend to lend me money. I was then, when I was getting money, I was then saying I lost 20 quid on the floor. Can I have another 20 quid? Just literally lying, even to her parents and things like that, just to get money because I was that desperate. I was gambling literally all the time. I'd wake up in the morning at 6-7 o'clock. I'd be betting then, because you get all sorts of bets you can put on, because there's like tennis and sort of table tennis and snooker and football. You can bet 24/7 if you want. So I was betting all day. I was betting when I was in work. It was just continuing, and I was almost falling asleep with the phone in my hand again, betting when I went to bed. So it then got to a stage where it was just massively out of control. I was, like I said, I was gambling all the time. I was going out with my partner. She would be looking at some clothes or something, and I'd then go down another aisle and I'd be betting on a football match at the sort of other end of the world, which I didn't have a clue about. Just constantly sort of hiding. She'd be on the sofa and I'd be at the other end of the sofa, and I'd be looking at bets, and she'd be in bed and I'd be sort of at the other side of the bed looking at what the football scores were, and I'd be going to bed at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning, betting on anything, or sometimes I'd have a go on slots and things like that. So it got to a stage, like I said, where it was just out of control. My incomings weren't covering my bills. And then my girlfriend sort of said, look, you need help. You need to sort yourself out. And I went to a company called Step Change, which they looked at all of my debts, and they set me up a payment plan so I could pay all my debts off. They didn't charge me any money because they were charity, but they worked out what my money was and what I could pay out, and stopped all sorts of credit with all these companies, and so I could then afford to pay all these debts off and still have the amount of money to do things I wanted to do. So that was great. My money was sort of being managed a bit more. I had more to spend, but again, I was still gambling. And then I just kept on gambling even more. I then took out another 2 payday loans on top of being sort of in control of paying the previous ones back, which I sort of hid from my partner. I was then starting to gamble again. And then my partner just asked to look at my bank account and sort of said, look, you've got to get help. You've got to go and sort of see Gamblers Anonymous. So I showed him my bank account, and it was literally just a mess. Basically, it was money going in from a betting company where I'd won a bit of money, and majority of it going out to them, and payday loan going in, payday loan going out. It was just, if someone had looked at my bank account, I actually thought it was that bad I could have been arrested, because it was just so bad. She said, look, you need to get yourself help. I just put it off and just thought, I don't really want to go. And I remember when I was 23, 24, I was looking at going to Gamblers Anonymous then. And obviously it took me until I was sort of 39 to actually make the first step. So I eventually went to the meeting. I remember now, it was like a Thursday night. I didn't really have a clue what was going to be happening. Got there, and you just, all of a sudden, you just got people asking you questions, and like, who's looking after you, who's looking after your money, and don't have control of your money, and don't have a mobile phone, don't watch football, cancel your email address, just literally everything, tell your partner everything. And so the first meeting was good. It just gives you lots of information. Believe me, it's not some sort of, you get a lot of people asking you questions, and some of them are awkward questions, and you can get a lot of confrontation to start with, because everyone's there to try and help you. So I went home.
Sorry, before you carry on, how did you, on that first meeting, how did you actually feel?
Just like dead nervous. I remember sitting outside, and I thought, I don't really know what to expect here. And then sort of I got there, and the couple of people that were chairing the meeting, sort of, they said to me, "Is this your first meeting?" and things like that. And that was good. They sort of, the 2 people that were chairing the meeting on that night then sort of acted as my like mentors. They give me their numbers, and they used to give me some like lifts to and from the meetings. But it is daunting. You've got, I don't know, 30 odd people in the room, all looking at you, because you're the newbie basically. But what they done is they took me into a room privately, 2 of the members, and sort of went through things and told me to tell my partner everything. And that's when I had to tell my partner I'd also got another 2 payday loans, which she didn't think I had. So then I had to go in there and sort of go tell her I had these loans, and in the end, she was all right about it. And then I just put things into sort of practice. Really, I was attending these meetings sort of twice a week. They were really good meetings because as the meetings progress over the weeks and months, you're then sort of progressing as a person, but then you see another person walk through the door who's in sort of the same mess as you are, and it almost gives you your medicine then to sort of continue because you don't want to be back like they were. So I was putting things into practice, like blocking, self-excluding through GamBlock. I was then, my girlfriend was in charge of my finances, so any payments I made were through a Monzo card, which is a card where every transaction pops up on her phone, so she can see if I was spending money on a cup of tea or anything. She could see exactly what I was spending money on. So I've done things like that. Obviously, keep attending meetings, and then I was just progressing all the time. I was more sort of alive at home. When you're gambling, you tend to just be in your own little world and things like that. So I just kept on attending and eventually got my first year without gambling. And there was a meeting where we all got like what's called like a 1 year pin. So that was good. It was all the relatives and family came to the pinning session. This is when I just told my dad, not straight away, but sort of well into my sort of first year. I eventually told my dad I'd been on sort of gambling, and because he was a gambler himself, and he came to my first pinning session. And I remember sort of the first sort of couple of messages he used to send me were sort of so proud of you for stopping gambling and things like that. And I'm glad I told him, really, because within sort of just over a year of sort of me attending meetings, or a little bit longer, he passed away through COVID. So it was good that I actually told him that I was attending, and I just remember the messages he was sending me when I was stopping, and I sort of used that as inspiration to sort of continue and stop gambling those messages, as well as for myself and other people as well. But ultimately, it's for yourself. And then it just kept on going, like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Like it's 5 years today. I managed to pay off all of my debts within the first couple of years. They do say the best thing to do is try and stretch your loans out, because once you pay things off, it's almost, well, what do we do next? Whereas if you sort of stretch your loans out over a sustained period of time, as long as the payments are manageable, then it gives you that constant reminder each month of like, why did I gamble and things like that. So yeah, I kept on attending and helping other people at meetings and being their sort of mentors. It's a bit like that now, where there's quite a new bunch of people attending. So it's good to sort of give them your experiences, and then I've chaired a couple of meetings as well. All it is a couple of hours a week. I mean, the early days I was attending sort of 2 meetings a week, which is about 4 hours. So I mean, what's 4 hours a week? When you're gambling, you've got you always make time for it. So 2 hours or 4 hours a week to ultimately sort of save your life, which really it does, because the problem with gambling is it's almost like a silent drug. Like if you're on drugs, you can almost see somebody's taken something, or if you're drunk, you can see they're drunk. But when you're gambling, you can't actually see anyone. You can't actually see how that person feels.
Yeah, because I
So
would imagine sort of mentally, you know, you're searching for that high, aren't you, of that big win.
Yeah, I mean, it got to a stage where I wasn't just gambling for money at the end. It was just a habit. It was just, and it's almost like an escapism.
Yeah.
If you, when I was younger and things like that, like a lot of my friends had girlfriends and things like that, so there were times where I was just bored. I remember I just used to sometimes I'd be on one of these online terminals and I'd be gambling away, and I was in like a zone, and then I'll just think to myself when I've done it, what have I just done that for? So it's not all the time just about money. It's just,
Right. Okay.
but yeah, ultimately it's nice to win and things like that. But then the majority of the time when I had money, that was when I actually felt the worst, because when I had the money, I knew then that that money was burning a hole in my pocket. So I then wanted to, like, I'd have money, but I'd hide it in the house or put it into the bed. But
Yeah.
ultimately, 2 or 3 days later, you've lost everything again. So yeah, it's just a strange thing.
Yeah. On that note, we'll bring Keith in.
Hi, Stuart.
Hi, Keith. You okay, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good. Obviously, you know Danny by going to the Gamblers Anonymous sessions as well. Do you want to just tell us how your story came about and give us your how it happened for you?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so for me, gambling started at the age of 15, 16. It was started off probably with bandits and, whether it be in a club, whether it would be in a chip shop or wherever you would sort of be with your friends. And I used, I'd always, if I had £5 in my pocket and I was going to get chips, it would always end up, or if I was going out, it'd always end up, I'd put a lot of my money into gambling machines. So that was the first demise of my gambling, really. And obviously at the time I was only young, so I didn't see any sort of problems with it. But as I started growing up, I got to the age of 18. A friend of mine was at the bus stop, and I was going to town. And he says, "Oh, why don't you come into the bookies and have a bet? I've got a horse for you." And so I didn't even know what I was doing. So I just followed in, and obviously, as you know, you'd go in there and that horse would win, wouldn't it? Because that's what would lure you in, wouldn't it? And that's what happened with me. First horse won, and then by then I thought, I was unstoppable. I'd be betting on dogs, football, roulette machines had just started coming in. But as Danny said, you started to get used to what numbers would come in, and all that was surrounding my head every day. And it was like that for me from 16 all the way through to the age of 35. But for me, the big problems for me came that when I got into my 20s and started earning more money, I started gambling more. And when I say gambling more, when you go into bookies, you look around people, and people are putting hundreds of pounds in, where I wasn't one of them people, but I would be gambling everything I had in my pocket, and then going back to whoever it'd be, whether it be my sister, my brother, my mum, or my best friend, whoever I could get money off, I would be gambling it with. And I remember an all-time low of mine. Remember being in a lot of debt with friends and companies, and I thought to myself, I'm going to get a loan. And I did this while I was at work. And if I remember rightly, I think I owed at the time something like 7,000 something. That was just in loans to companies. So I thought I'd take £10,000, get rid of them loans and pay off some of my friends. Well, I did this at work in the morning, and I got the loan. It was £10,000, and I remember I had a William Hill account at the time, and I remember being at work, and I remember just there and then having £10,000 and putting £1,000 into my William Hill account, £2,000, £3,000, and by the end of the day, I think I'd lost £6,000 within the space of 4 hours. So obviously that £10,000 had come down to £4,000. And I thought, what am I going to do next? I thought, well, I can carry on chasing my money, I suppose. So the next day, I did the exact same, and I spent the £4,000. So within 2 days, I'd spent £10,000 loan all on William Hill. And the embarrassment was one thing. Well, I had to ring up the company and tell them that I didn't have it for this, didn't have it for that, and I managed to get an agreement with the company. I explained what I did, but in between all this, I'd met my wife, who I'm now with, and I kept everything secret from her. We would together, we kept things together, but some monetary value things, I would keep away from her, and I managed to keep it away from her for a long, long time. And I always remember just before we had our first girl, and then we had my boy would have been, we found out in 2017 was going to have a boy, and it was a great feeling. And even though gambling was massively in the heights of things, I remember being around, and I remember my wife just before we're just going to give birth to my boy, she would have been 31, 32 weeks away, quite close to having him. And someone had bumped into our car, and it was a write-off. So she went to the bank to go and get a loan, and we had a joint account, and they said to my wife, look, you need to speak to your husband. So obviously I had to come clean and admit to her that I had a gambling problem. So what I did first was I went to a company called Aquarius, and they're a company in Birmingham. And what they do is they help you with gambling, and all it pretty much was you talk with somebody for an hour, and in between that you'd be filling numbers out of how you feel. Well, that worked for a couple of months, and obviously it kept my wife away from me because I told her that I'm doing something about my gambling. So 3, 4, 5, 6 months went down the line, my boy would have been born, and I was having a great time. And it come to Christmas, and there was £20 on the side, and I took it on Boxing Day. I took it to the bookies. I weren't, and obviously, as you can imagine, I was back in then. I was doing it all over again, and was gambling, and it was. I would say I wasn't as bad as the first time, but that was only because I couldn't get the money like last time. But every little bit of money I could get, whether it was family members or whoever or friends, I would do my best. Even friends from work, and some of the things that you do just to get money for your next bet, and it become a really embarrassing state. And then I remember being on holiday with me and the family, was down at Devon Cliffs, and I remember I had my little boy in my arms and my daughter to the side of me, and I thought to myself, what would happen if I died tomorrow? I was thinking to myself, they would all know that I'm a bad gambler, and I'm a loser, and all this, and that thought literally took over my whole holiday and spoilt my holiday, my first holiday with my little boy. And anyway, when I got home, I ended up having to go and see a doctor, and the doctor then got me to go to the crisis team because he knew I was in trouble. I wasn't thinking of suicide or anything along those lines, but my thought process just wasn't right. So when I went to see crisis team after a couple of meetings, in between this time, my family got together and decided that they thought that I've got a problem anyway. So they confronted me, and I told them what the problem was. And the first thing they told me was to go back and tell my wife that I'm gambling again. And I said to them, if I do that, she'll leave me and I'll never see my children again. Well, anyway, they got my head around things, and I decided the next morning when I got back home, I'd go and tell them, but I'd go and tell my wife. But that couldn't lay right in my head. So I went back that night and I told her, and like I'd said to everyone, she told me to leave, rightfully so. I've done everything. I've done everything wrong, and I'm no good for her. And anyway, so she left me. I left, and we had a chat for a few days. After a few days, she told me to get myself sorted, and if I got myself sorted, she'd come back and we talk about things. So 5 days, 6 days, 7 days went, 8 days, and obviously it come to about day 9 or day 10, and I'd been in touch with Gamblers Anonymous. I going to a first meeting. I went there, and what can I say about Gamblers Anonymous? It's the one organisation that's saved my life, saved my family, saved everything. I mean, we can sit here and talk about the debts that we got in South. You know, Danny was in the same situation as me, taking loans out, payday loans, everything. But the money, it meant nothing. It's humility, and you know, we'd lost everything, lost it all. And when you get through the doors of GA and you're sitting around people that are the exact same as who you are, and they've done exactly what you've done, you get to understand things a little bit better. Well, in between all this, luckily enough, my family, you know, supported me, my wife, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, great people, absolutely backed me. Like, and I didn't even deserve that backing, you know, but luckily they did. And them sticking by me and going to Gamblers Anonymous every week. I used to go every Sunday without fail. Saved my life. And you know, I'm 4.5 years into my recovery now, and things are just so much different. I mean, we go back to gambling and what it does, and you know, when you're a compulsive gambler, you're chasing something that doesn't exist. So if me in the mid height, or Danny in the mid height, even if we win £1 million, we'd have still not been happy, because this figure in your head, it doesn't exist. We just want to go and go and go until we can't go no more. And that's
yeah, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You know, obviously Danny wasn't necessarily chasing that high. For you, was you chasing that high of winning, or was it the same? It didn't matter what it was.
It didn't matter. It generally didn't matter. I mean, I've bet on cards, football. I've bet on 2 snails. I could bet on anything. Honestly, it's just, it gets you that bad. And you know, I mean, if you go back to thinking of you know, family gatherings of you know, whether it be Grand Nationals or Cheltenhams or anything, I used to get my family involved in all that. That's how I felt accepted, because them sort of days, they're doing it with you, so you feel normal. But where they'd be putting pound each ways, I'd have that pound each ways sharing with them, but I'd have £5 here, £10 here. You know, it just gets you that bad, and that's how horrible it is for us.
And how did, you know, your going back to your sort of your first day, if you like, going into the GA Gamblers Anonymous meeting, how did that make you feel? How did you feel on that first day, if you can remember?
Frightened, seriously frightened, scared what I was doing. But in my head, I knew that I had to do it, because that was the consequence. If I didn't go there, I had no family. So I knew walking through this door was the first step to getting my family back. So whether I liked it or not is one thing, but knowing full well that there was a chance that I could get my family back meant that I had to go through this door. And going through that door, honestly, the people there are just great. They're just great people. Like Danny says, you know, yeah, you get confronted about things, and you'll do your best not to lie in your first meeting. But when they say, "Have you told everything?" when you get home, you realise, no, you haven't. There's that, and you know. But once you sit down and you start talking to people and you start telling people about what you're going through, life just becomes ever so easy, you know, and everything just takes place. Paying off debts. I think I did it in about 2 years, but you know, that, like, you know, like Danny said, they like you, the group like you to try and keep your debts for as long as you can, because it makes you realise, makes you think about what you used to be like. So yeah. But I had to, in the case of it was a mortgage at the time, so we paid it off. But I know the consequences for gambling, and you know, whether, you know, I'm in a strong place now, and I'm so far away from gambling, but you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. You know, I'd like to think, for me, I'll never do it again, because I know what I will lose if I do it again. But no one knows. No one ever knows.
In regards to the meeting, can you just can you just turn up, or have you got to be referred by a doctor or anything like that? That's a question to either of you two.
No, you can just turn up, but I look after the email side of GA for our fellowship in Coventry. So, if you want, I could happily have to leave you, all the support and what I mean, anything else you need. It's
fantastic.
and Danny can as well. Like you say, you're here and the rest of your team are here, but if you ever needed advice from me, I'm prepared to help anyone, because that group saved me. So I would, if I could save anybody, I will.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's twice a week. There's one at 7:00. 7:00 on a Sunday, 7:30 on a Thursday. It's at the Great Meeting House on the Holyhead Road. It's near St John's Ambulance, and there's like a church there as well.
Yeah.
Again, like what Keith said, you don't have to be referred. You just walk in. You pay £1 for your teas and coffees, but it's your best pound you'll ever spend in your life. And I think the first Thursday of each month, they have like a families can come. So if your girlfriend or your mum or whatever wants to sort of discuss things with sort of other mums and brothers and girlfriends, they can go into a sort of another room and talk to each other, because obviously we're just talking about ourselves as gamblers, but you don't realise what the sort of the partners and that are going through, and sort of they're losing out on a lot of things while their partners gambling. So yeah, it's twice a week, and like I said, it's nothing really, 2 hours per meeting. And like I said, it's the best pound you'll ever spend.
Yeah, like you said, Danny, it's not just about the individual that's gambling. It's about, the brothers, the sisters, the girlfriends, the wives, the grandparents, and, whoever else that, you're trying to keep around you so much, but there's always that barrier, isn't there, when you are gambling, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. And it's in terms of the meeting as well, it's not just they help you with everything normal sort of, because the thing is, something could be going on in your life which could trigger you to gamble. So if you've got an issue with something, an issue with work, or an issue with, I don't know, a partner or something, you can discuss that in the room, and they can give you advice. But like what Keith said, like Keith's nearly 5 years, I'm 5 years. I've spoken to people that have gone 10 years and then all of a sudden just decided to have a bet, and you've always got to be on your guard. You can never say never. And one thing I'd say is if you've stopped gambling, then just stop yourself from having that first bet. If trying and tell as many people as you can, and because if you've not told any of your friends and then you're in a pub, then if you've told your friends, they can sort of see you going towards a fruit machine or something. But once you've had that bet, you're basically back in it, because we're told not to gamble on anything. I wouldn't gamble on a raffle ticket. I wouldn't spend £1 on a raffle ticket. I wouldn't have a go on the lottery. I wouldn't have a go on a game of killer, because I know if I win anything on that, then I could be back into it almost straight away.
Yeah.
So you need to stop everything.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So once again, there have been two amazing stories, and you're kind of the lucky ones, really, because you're 4.5. Is it 4.5 years, Keith, for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, 4.5 years, and obviously Danny's 5 years today. Congratulations to the both of you for doing it. Keep up the hard work. I will get that link off you for your email address, if that's okay, Keith.
No problem.
Afterwards as well, and we'll put that on our site as well, just in case people want to email you for any information or anything like that as well. I must say on here as well that I'm not a professional. We're not professionals. So obviously down the bottom, you can see for immediate help, please call the Samaritans. 24/7 on 116-123. You can call 1 and select option 2, and you can always call 999 as well for any help. Again, 2 brilliant stories. Thank you very much for sharing and coming on and sharing your stories. They're 2 amazing stories that you've managed to come through the nicer end of. Is there anything that you 2 want to add just as we finish off, or are you happy with everything?
No, I'm happy. Just like I said, I hope listening to this, it sort of can help people out there that are sort of maybe gambling and maybe don't want to seek help. If they can sort of see how sort of me and Keith have come through it, and just basically take that first step, you can change your life, not just for you, but for your family as well.
Yeah. Keith?
Totally agreed. I back that 100%, Danny. I think that I think a few things that you learn when you give up gambling. You learn that that you don't want to do it no more. That's the first thing that you have to admit. And then once you start becoming transparent about everything, your life just starts becoming so easy. And for people who are listening out there, these are the first 2 steps that you can take. And if you can, I know it takes a lot to admit that you've got a problem, but coming forward and getting the right help for whether it's gambling or alcohol, drugs, or whatever it may be, first things first, come forward and get the right help. That's what I'm big for. I want to see people, stepping forward, because there's a lot of people out there that are just too frightened to admit that they've got a problem. As soon as they can do that, there can be help along, but you've just got to make that big step. And I know it's difficult, but people like me, myself, and Danny, we're always around for any sort of gambling issues, anything like that. And anyone else needs anything, just let me know.
Brilliant. Well said, both of you. Thank you very much for coming on. Keith, don't shoot off straight away afterwards. All right, mate. Just stay on there for a minute.
No problem.
All right. Just going to take you guys out. Okay. Once again, just remember, please, you're not alone. Please go and seek help if you do need anything about anything, not just gambling, alcohol, whatever it may be, drugs. Please go and seek some help because you're not alone. As I've said before, down the bottom, as you can see, scrolling for the podcasts. For immediate help, please call the Samaritans 24/7 on 116-123. You can call 111 and select option 2. That's 111 and option 2. And also you can call 999. Please remember that you're not alone out there, and seek some help. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope it does help anyone out there.